Playing with Power MTG. Powerful cards, powerful formats. We are back playing with Precon Commander decks. In this series, we take pre-constructed Commander decks right out of the box and see how they fare at the Commander table. Today we are bringing a little bit of everything. From Lord of the Rings to March of the Machines, this game's got something for everyone. A big thanks to Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring today's video. Be sure to check out the link in the description for more info, and without further ado, let's start out by showcasing our fighters this evening. First, we have Alex piloting Brightpalm Soul Awakener. This deck seeks to leverage the backup mechanic and lean into +1/+1 counter synergies. Alex's opening hand contains a Mosswort Bridge, Forgotten Ancient, Furycom Snarl, Hindervines, Plains, Kodama's Reach, and a Heaven to Earth. Next, we have TK piloting Ixhel, Scion of Atraxa. This deck seeks to win through the use of poison counters and uses those poison counters for card advantage through its commander. TK's opening hand contains a Command Tower, Forest, Culling Ritual, Shine Shadow Snarl, Plague Stinger, Vraska's Fall, and a Painful Truths. After that we have Zeb piloting the partner pair of Frodo, Adventurous Hobbit, and Sam, Loyal Attendant. This deck seeks to create a lot of food tokens and leverage life gain synergies to pull ahead. Zeb's opening hand contains a Well of Lost Dreams, Hithlane Rope, Chromatic Lantern, Shire Terrace, Necroblossom Snarl, and 2 Plains. Finally, we have Zach piloting Éowyn, Shield Maiden. This deck seeks to synergize with humans and leverage the Monarchy to gain additional advantage. Zach's opening hand contains a Mountain, 2 Plains, Harsh Mentor, Oath of Eorl, Lost a Legend, and an Heirloom Blade. Without further ado, let's kick off this Dandy Dapper Dank Daydream. Alex had the cheapest deck at the table and gets to start us off. Alex draws a card for turn and plays a Mosswort Bridge into play tapped. It enters, Alex looks at the top 4, putting one into exile face down and the others on bottom. Alex passes. TK draws and plays a Shine Shadow Snarl into play untapped, revealing a Plains as it enters. TK passes. Zeb draws and plays a Necroblossom Snarl into play tapped. He ends his turn. Zach draws, plays a Plains, and passes. Alex draws and plays a Furycom Snarl into play untapped, revealing a Plains as it enters. Alex ships the turn. TK draws and plays a Plains. He casts a Plague Stinger. TK ends his turn. Zeb draws and also plays a Plains. He casts a Hithlane Rope. Zeb passes to Zach. Zach draws and plays an Exotic Orchard. He casts Harsh Mentor. Zach passes. At the end of Zach's turn, Alex casts Heaven, dealing 1 damage to each creature with flying, killing TK's Plague Stinger. Alex draws and plays a Plains. He casts Cultivate. He fetches up a forest onto the battlefield tapped and a mountain into his hand. Alex ends his turn. TK draws and plays a Forest. He casts Painful Truths, drawing 3 cards and losing 3 life. He passes, discarding to hand size. Zeb draws and plays a Shire Terrace. He casts Chromatic Lantern. He casts Birds of Paradise. Zeb ships the turn to Zach. Zach draws and plays a Mountain. He casts an Arcane Signet. He moves to combat and attacks Alex with Harsh Mentor. Alex takes it and Zach passes. Alex draws and plays a Mountain. He casts Forgotten Ancient. Alex passes. TK draws and plays a Command Tower. He casts Culling Ritual. Forgotten Ancient triggers and gets a counter. In response, Zach floats a white through Arcane Signet. Culling Ritual resolves, destroying all non-land permanents mana value 2 or less, and then TK adds 2 black and 2 green. He casts Putrefy, destroying Forgotten Ancient. TK ends his turn. Zeb draws and plays a Plains. He casts his commander, Frodo, Adventurous Hobbit. He casts his other commander, Sam, Loyal Attendant. Zeb moves to combat, Sam triggers, and Zeb creates a food. Zeb ships the turn to Zach. Zach draws and plays an island. He passes. Alex draws and plays a Gavany Township. He casts Kodama's Reach. He fetches up a Plains onto the battlefield and a mountain into his hand. Alex ends his turn. TK draws and casts his commander, Ixhel, Scion of Atraxa. He passes to Zeb. Zeb draws and plays a Plains. He casts Well of Lost Dreams. He sacrifices a food, gaining 3 life. Well of Lost Dreams triggers, Zeb pays 1 and draws a card. He moves to combat and Sam triggers. In response, Alex casts Dramoka's Command, targeting Zeb. In response, Zach casts Lost a Legend, putting Chromatic Lantern into Zeb's library, 4th from the top. Then Command resolves, and Zeb sacrifices Well of Lost Dreams, and then he creates a food. He attacks Alex with Sam and Frodo. Frodo triggers, and the ring tempts Zeb, and he assigns Frodo as his ring bearer. Then Alex takes it, and Zeb passes to Zach. Zach draws and plays a Mountain. He casts his commander, Éowyn, Shield Maiden. He passes. Alex draws and plays a Mountain. He casts Restoration Angel. He casts Death Breeder's Champion. It enters, and Alex puts a +1/+1 counter onto Restoration Angel. Alex ends his turn. TK draws and plays a Forest. He moves to combat and attacks Zeb with Ixhel. Zeb takes it and gets 2 poison counters. In his second main phase, TK casts Vraska's Fall. Each opponent sacrifices a creature and gets a poison counter. He casts Grateful Apparition. TK moves to his end step, Ixhel triggers, and Zeb exiles the top card of his library. The turn moves to Zeb. Zeb draws and plays a Sun Petal Grove. He casts Gwaihir, Greatest of the Eagles. He moves to combat, Sam triggers, and Zeb creates a food. In his second main phase, he cracks a food, gaining 3 life. He moves to his end step, Gwaihir triggers, and Zeb creates a 3/3 bird. The turn moves to Zach. Zach draws and plays a Plains. He casts Oath of Eorl. It gets its first counter, and Zach creates 2 1/1 human soldiers. Zach ships the turn to Alex. Alex draws and casts a Kicked, Inscription of Abundance. He puts 2 counters onto Restoration Angel, gains 6 life, and then fights Gwaihir, killing it. He casts Ion Storm. Alex passes to TK. TK draws and casts Trailblazer's Boots. He equips it to his commander, Ixhel. He moves to combat and attacks Zack with Grateful Apparition and Alex with Ixhel. Both take it, and Alex gets 2 poison counters. Then TK proliferates, giving each player an additional poison counter. He moves to his end step, Ixhel triggers, and each opponent exiles the top card of their library. TK passes. Zeb draws and recasts his commander, Frodo. He moves to combat, Sam triggers, and Zeb creates a food. He passes. Zack draws, and in his first main phase, Oath of Eorl gets another counter. Then Zack creates 2 2/2 human knights. He plays an island for turn. He recasts his commander, Éowyn, Shield Maiden. He moves to combat, Éowyn triggers, Zack creates 2 more human knights and then draws a card. Zack ends his turn. Alex draws and recasts his commander, Bright Palm. It enters, Alex backs up 1, putting a counter onto Restoration Angel. He moves to combat, Restoration Angel's backup ability triggers, doubling its counters. TK takes 11, and then Alex passes the turn. TK draws and plays a Swamp. He casts Contagion Clasp. It enters, and TK puts a -1/-1 counter onto Restoration Angel. He moves to combat and attacks Zack with the Apparition and Alex with Ixhel. Before damage, Alex activates Ion Storm, removing a counter from Restoration Angel, dealing 2 to Grateful Apparition, killing it. Then Alex takes the hit and gets 2 poison counters. In his second main phase, TK activates Contagion Clasp, proliferating. He gives everyone an additional poison and then gives Zack's Oath of Eorl another lore counter. It triggers, Zack sacrifices it, giving Éowyn an indestructible counter, and Zack becomes the Monarch. He moves to his end step, Ixhel triggers, and each opponent exiles the top card of their library. The turn moves to Zeb. Zeb draws and plays a Swamp. He casts Chromatic Lantern. He casts Landravol, Horizon Witness. He moves to combat, Sam triggers, and Zeb creates a food. Zeb passes. Zack draws and plays a Plains. He casts Lothar Captain. It enters, and Zack taps down TK's commander. He casts Gimli of the Glittering Caves. He moves to combat, Éowyn triggers, Zack creates 2 more humans and draws a card. He attacks TK with 6 human. Then TK takes it all. Zack moves to his end step, draws from the Monarch, and the turn moves to Alex. Alex draws and activates Mosswort Bridge, casting the hideaway card, Shalai and Halar. He moves to combat and attacks Zack with Bright Palm and TK with Restoration Angel. Bright Palm triggers and Alex doubles the counters on the Angel. Shalai and Halar trigger and deals 6 damage to Zack. Then they both take it, TK dies, and Alex becomes the Monarch. In his second main phase, Alex casts Constable of the Realm. With nothing else, Alex moves to his end step, draws from the Monarch, and passes the turn. Zeb draws and moves to combat. Sam triggers and Zeb creates a food. He attacks Alex with Sam, Landravol, and his bird. Landravol triggers and gives Sam flying until the end of turn. Alex blocks Sam with Shalai and Halar. Then Alex takes the rest and Zeb becomes the Monarch. In his second main phase, he casts Feasting Hobbit. It enters, Zeb sacrifices 4 food, giving the Feasting Hobbit 12 +1/+1 counters. He casts Butterbur, Bree Innkeeper. He moves to his end step, creates a food, draws from the Monarch, and passes to Zack. During his upkeep, Zack creates a human through Lothar Captain. Captain triggers and taps Feasting Hobbit. He draws and plays a Plains. He moves to combat and Éowyn triggers. He creates 2 more humans and draws a card. Lothar Captain triggers and taps down 2 more of Zeb's creatures. He attacks Zeb with Éowyn, Lothar Captain, and 8 2/2 knights. Zeb blocks Éowyn with Frodo. Then Zeb takes the rest and Zack becomes the Monarch. In his second main phase, Zack casts Weathered Wayfarer. Captain triggers and taps down Alex's Constable. He casts Humble Defector. Captain triggers and taps Alex's Shalai and Halar. He casts Wayfarer's Bauble. He moves to his end step, draws from the Monarch, and passes to Alex. Alex draws and plays a Cinder Glade. He moves to combat and attacks Zack with Shalai and Halar and Restoration Angel, and attacks Zeb with Bright Palm and Constable of the Realm. Bright Palm triggers, and in response, Alex activates Gavany Township, putting a +1/+1 counter onto each creature he controls. Shalai and Halar triggers 4 times, dealing 4 to Zack. Constable of the Realm triggers and exiles Éowyn. Then Bright Palm's trigger resolves and Alex puts 13 counters onto Restoration Angel. Shalai and Halar triggers and deals 13 to Zack. Then they all take it, and Zack dies. Constable triggers and gets 2 counters. It triggers again, exiling Feasting Hobbit. Shalai and Halar triggers, dealing 2 to Zeb. In his second main phase, Alex activates Ion Storm, removing 2 counters, dealing 4 to Zeb, killing him, and Alex wins the game. Ladies and gentlemen, what a fun Precon game this evening. Congrats to Alex on his win. Bright Palm is so unassuming at first glance. However, when your deck is built around these cards, it has the ability to quickly spiral out of control, as Alex showed tonight. The Precons of today are so much better than the early days of Precon Commanders, and tonight's game showed that off in great fashion. They were powerful, synergistic, and a ton of fun. We highly recommend you grab some yourself and play with your friends. Well, that about wraps it up for this Precon game. A big thanks again to Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring this video. Check out the link in the description for more. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.